to our next presentation here. We're having Rudolf Kuhn join us. Rudy is the VP of Data Analytics and Head Process Mining Ambassador for Uipath. Rudy, please do join us. We're excited about having you here. Rudy was probably one of the first to recognize the potential of process mining. After 10 years in business consulting at IBM and other companies, he founded Process Gold in Frankfurt, Germany in January of 2010. It was the first consulting company specialized in process mining. In 2016, Process Gold published its own solution, which is used by EY worldwide as a standard for process audits. At the end of 2019, Process Gold was acquired by Uipath, where Rudy is the Vice President of Data Analytics and Process Mining, supporting over 7,000 customers in the integration of process mining and robotics process automation. Rudy, we're very excited to have you here with us today. Very much looking forward to your presentation.
Hey guys, thanks. Thank you, Jose, for the nice introduction. Guys, welcome to my presentation. And I can tell you, nobody is more happy than me that I can really join this meeting today. But I will tell you a little bit later why this is the case. I almost didn't make it, but I'm here, and that's great news actually. Good, yeah. So introduction enough. Rudolf Kuhn, usually go by Rudy. I'm probably really the guy who first recognized what process mining is capable of doing. And maybe I was one of the first to also realize what process mining cannot do. But before we come to this, this presentation will not celebrate process mining as the greatest technology ever, but I will be more skeptical and I will talk about some limitations of process mining and what it's good for and where we need a little bit more than just process mining. But before we start that, let me just introduce our company to you. One of the very boring slides. So Uipath probably is one of the fastest growing companies, originally founded in Bucharest in Romania, now headquartered in New York, and I'm based in Frankfurt in Germany. We have more than 7,000 customers, and what do we do for these customers? Well, we do RPA. So RPA is robotics process automation. I would love to talk about robotics process automation a little bit more, but this presentation really is about process mining, so let's stick to the topic. But we have more than probably by now more than 3,000 customers worldwide, more than 1 billion of funding, and just recently we had some great news that were which were picked up by NASDAQ, and you could actually see this in New York on what is it called, Times Square, right? So right now Uipath is worth more than 10 billion, so we are a proud decacorn island. And also Uipath was recognized as one of the most disrupting companies in the world. And we ended up on the CNBC list, I think, of Disruptor 50. Okay, guys, enough about the company. What is the topic today? We want to talk about process mining. And why is it important? Well, it's important because right now, everyone is rethinking their processes and organizations for business agility. COVID-19 is a very, very bad thing, but it helped really people and organizations to understand how important digitization and automation really is. So more than ever before, companies are really rethinking, how can we increase resilience? How can we increase efficiency? How can we reduce the risk in our organizations? And then normal people working all around the place, processes end to end. So this is really what keeps people, awake at night. And Gartner recently came up with a new term called hyperautomation. And what is hyperautomation? In hyperautomation, you see the word automation. It's actually the majority of the letters. So hyperautomation is about automation. That's why RPA really is in the center of everything. But if you really look at it and you think about what do we need to do to become really an automated company, thinking automation first, robots first, really implementing this technology, we need more than just the pure RPA platform. So our company is the leading RPA provider in the world, but we think it's not enough. And Gartner recognized the same topic. If you really want to be successful with RPA, you need to add a couple of things. You need to add AI skills. You need to add machine learning. You need to support long-running workflows. You need to have advanced analytics, native integrations with systems like SAP, like anything else out there. And of course, you need process mining. Because before you automate, you should always think about what the process really is. You need to recognize the processes, and you need first to understand what the problem is before you can really tackle it, before you can automate it, before you can apply AI, long-running workflows, and of course, we need some analytics, and of course, we can use process mining again for advanced analytics about the process. So when all this really comes together, this is what we and what Gartner really calls hyperautomation. And I'm very, very proud to be part of this company, because Uipath probably is the only company in the world that really has a complete hyperautomation platform, as we call it. So, before we as Process Gold joined Uipath, there were basically only 3 boxes: build, manage, and run. The blue, orange, and the red box. So we had the best platform to build bots, to manage bots in the cloud or on premise, and to run our attended, unattended bots, our test bots, and all the other stuff we have. But again, the biggest challenge for customers really was to understand, okay, what kind of process do we really have? What should we automate? And after we have implemented automation, RPA, how is the process now improving? What's the impact of RPA on the process? And how can we engage with the people? So this is why Uipath acquired Process Code. We also acquired a second company called Snapshot. So now we have a couple of discovery products called Automation Hub. Automation Hub basically is like a social network where everybody who is working in their organization can propose automation ideas. This will be picked up by the Center of Excellence and will be implemented. We have Task Capture. This is like a bot, or let's say like an agent watching over your shoulder digitally and recording what people are doing in the front end. We have process mining for the end-to-end backend processes, the business data, and we have task mining, which is currently in a private preview phase, where we can better understand what's happening in the front end. The front end is really the place that was a kind of blind spot for process mining in the past, because we never saw any digital footprints from applications like email, like Excel, like PowerPoint, or that was really a challenge. So now with the combination of the different products, we can really better understand what's really going on front end, back end. We automate, we measure, we monitor, and also during my presentation, I will talk about our latest integration of process mining and Action Center, because this really is where everything comes together. And, so what is process mining? You have seen a couple or many presentations already about process mining. For me, the easiest way to describe to explain what process mining is, it's like an X-ray system for business processes. So if it hurts, or maybe if you want to avoid pain in the future, you take the data, you upload it to the platform, you push the magic button, and you will get 100% transparency. And if you compare this approach to the traditional work I did for many years, like as a consultant for IBM, the workshops where you end up with more processes when you have people in the room, because everybody's telling you a different story, you will save a lot of time and you will save a lot of money. And X-ray is a very interesting topic. And today I want to share a little story with you, which just recently happened to me, unfortunately, actually last week. So what happened last week? This. Guys, I love biking. So I go on a bike ride every morning for something like an hour. And last week on Wednesday, very bad luck, I hit some unexpected speed bumpers in full speed. I was catapulted over the bar of my bike, and I actually ended up lying on the road. I was lucky, I wear a helmet, but yeah, I actually fell on my arm, my shoulder, and my elbow. So I was delivered to the hospital, or brought to the hospital, taken to the hospital by the ambulance, and they x-rayed my elbow and my shoulder, and they realized, oh, it's broken. It's not only broken, it's actually a little bit shattered, but that was really, very, very nasty, just last week. And now imagine that the company would stop there and just tell me, hey, Rudy, that's the problem. Here are the pictures, take it home. Good luck, all the best, and have fun. would that solve the problem? No, of course not. X-ray diagnosis is so important to understand where the pain and where the problem really comes from. And I can tell you a shoulder shouldn't look like this. But what they did, they actually fixed it. I know it looks nasty, believe me, it hurts, but now it's fixed. That was 3 days ago or 4 days ago. So I'm more than happy that I can join this session today because I wasn't sure if I can make it, but now everything is fixed. I don't have a cast, I have to move around. But that's the difference, guys, between diagnosis and solution. Of course, we need to understand where the problem comes from, but after we understand the problem, we need to apply a treatment. And of course, being a business consultant, I know there are many different ways how a problem can be solved. Sometimes just a little bit of training might be the right way, but RPA is a great way to increase efficiency and to reduce risk. Okay, let's move forward and let's start, maybe with the first part, because I would like to show you really in a practical way how we are using our technology, our process mining platform, to discover RPA potential. So now we are going to apply the X-ray and see, what the problem really is. For that, I switch to my browser, and what you should see now is our process mining application. So, since 2010, I think we have delivered something like 500, 600 process mining projects. And over time, we realized that not every project or process is really different. So we created a sort of a template, an application template. You can upload any sort of data into it, and out of the box, you get 50 or 60 different dashboards with all kind of insights. And today, I will show you only 3 or 4 dashboards because we don't have more time. So this first dashboard is for sure the most boring dashboard we have because it only gives me some indication on the data we have. And we can see, we have 20,000 cases, and a case in our example based on the activities like receive invoice, process invoice, approve invoice, and paying invoices. Apparently, this process is about invoice approval. And the interesting thing is that this company, by the way, it's some real data from one of our German customers, and they used an SAP workflow system for the invoice approval process. And they really figured out 311 different ways, we call them variants, how this process can be done. But let's go back to the first quarter of 2019, because this is where the automation journey for this company started. So let's take a look at the first quarter of 2019. So what do we have in the first quarter? In the first quarter, we have 6,000 invoices, and we still have 165 different ways how this process was run. Well, let's take a look at the process. So when I click on process, the system will show me the most common way how this was done. We have these boxes, we call these boxes activities. We have the connections. The connections are the edges, and because both of my sliders are set to 0%, all we see are only the most common way, basically variant number 1, how this process was executed. So if I click on variant number 1, the system will apply a filter, and you will see we start with receive invoice, we process the invoice, we finally check it, we approve it, and we pay. But if I do not apply any filters, of course, I can add more and less common activities. Now we see that most of the time we go straight forward, but sometimes, actually for 1,796 cases, we take the side step, we first request some data, we check the contract, and only then we do the final check of invoice. The numbers you see on the screen, of course, they represent the number of invoices. We can easily switch to other metrics, like, for example, the case amount. And you maybe notice that the color changed over here. Because, if we have a bigger invoice, we have a different approval process. Well, that's the way it is. Let's go back to the number of cases. And if I add more edges, the system will, of course, indicate that, for example, apparently, the final check of invoice is not final all the time because we see some loops. So this doesn't look really efficient. And if we add one more exception, we might discover that we have some compliance issues where cases are bypassing the approval step. Really? Does it really happen? Well, we can check. We simply click. And if you click on it, you apply a filter for all cases where the final check of invoice is directly followed by pay invoice. We approve our selection. Oh, and we see that some cases apparently come down only to be approved afterwards. Oh, and we have a great functionality to visualize this. Let me show you. it's the animation. So if I turn on my animation, you will see this little dot over here. And if I start the animation, then every single dot in my presentation or in my slide, in my movie, basically represents an invoice. You know, some are moving very, very slowly. Some are even standing still. I can always stop it. I can zoom in and, for example, ask, hey, who are you? What's wrong with you? And if I click on it, the system will take me to the detail tab and will show me exactly the master data with an SLA violation. So that's a unique functionality. We have the tagging. I will talk about this in a moment, but we can exactly see, you know, it took us 83 days to pay this invoice, and we see exactly when, who, you know, the bots or the people, what they did, how long it took, and if we have the right data, like here for the system, we can see actually cost us $7. But let's go back to the process. You know, if I would really like to know if we have any cases without any approval, I can also filter for cases where approved invoice was never, actually cases never passed through approved invoice. We create another filter. We select we confirm our selection. And if I add all the complexity for the process, we see the process and we can look, you know, it happens very often in variant number 5. So this is what variant number 5 looks like. You know, basically, who cares? I would like to understand who are the suppliers and maybe what's the value and how did the value change over time and maybe who is responsible. So this component is very flexible and you can always, you know, configure it in a way you want without being a developer or editor. So, and if you would like to change the sort order, you simply drag and drop the supplier behind the case owner. You can go up one level to supplier type, and so on and so on. So you really get full transparency of the process. But this is just, you know, standard process mining. This has little to do with RPA. And of course, it's great to better understand, you know, if I remove the supplier type, or we can see that this happens very often for environmental services. So again, one more click, I approve my selection. We are down to 370 cases worth almost 1 million. And one more click on this icon, we jump to the details and we see a list of the 370 cases. We can sort on case amount, we can sort on throughput data. And if I click on any of the cases, I will again see exactly the Gantt chart diagram, what happened when, what kind of, you know, exceptions we had, and so on. But, you know, this is just pure process mining. This will not help you to solve the problem. It will show you where the problem really comes from. But if you want to solve the problem, you need to do it in a different way. So let me show you what we can do. If I remove all my filters, and I go back to the variants, and I remove this one, and we look only at the number of cases. Well, so what do we see? Well, we see, when I go back, we see 165 different variants with 6,103 invoices. And, you know, I'm fairly new to the RPA world, but my colleagues really told me, Rudy, there's no way we can automate this mass. There are too many exceptions, too many variations. Hey, that simply doesn't work. If you think about a bot who can really manage this, it would be too complicated to program it. But what about the 5 most common variants? You know, if we go for the 5 most common variants, well, look at this. I would say this picture looks so much better. And we still have almost 5,000 cases, so 4,870 cases. So almost, you know, 70–80% of all the cases are handled or, you know, are covered by the 5 most common variants. And I'm pretty sure we can apply some automation here, but where should we start? Well, what about the bottlenecks? So when we switch to the average throughput time, the system will indicate, again, based on the dark color coding, that we have a huge bottleneck between receive invoice and process invoice of 9 days, because these 9 days are significantly longer than any other part of our process. You know, we have 1.3 days here, we have 1.4 seconds here. So 9 days really seems to be the bottleneck. So let's do something about process invoice. And to better understand what's really going on in process invoice, we need maybe one more tool we have in our toolbox called task mining. So let me introduce you to task mining. what is task mining? In task mining, we basically, again, with process discovery, that's the overall name for process mining and all the other tools we have at Uipath, we want to understand how a process is really executed. And if you look at the process like SAP purchase to pay, based on the data from process mining, you can only discover, based on the big milestones from SAP, for example, how the process is run, and you can discover what should be automated. Like, for example, we discover we have a bottleneck with create purchase order, but before we can automate, we need to better understand what's really happening over here. So what we want to do, we want to focus on create purchase order only, and we use our task mining capability to understand not only what to automate, but how to automate it. And task mining will actually tell us that create purchase order in this example means you receive an email, you create a PDF or you read the PDF, you copy some data, and only after you save the data in SAP, you will see the timestamp for create purchase order over here. And that's the level where automation really takes place. So how are we looking to combine process mining and task mining in the future? You have seen a similar picture like this. We have this process invoice over here, and it's a bottleneck. And now the system is asking us to select a task on the left to visualize its execution. Okay, let's do it. So, let's say I want to understand, for example, how process mining really works. So when I click on it, based on the data from task mining, the data we collected in the front end of an application or front end of all applications on the desktop, we can see that process invoice basically are two different ways. This is the most common way, but there's a second way. So when I click on it, we can see, oh, look at this. So this, we have the screenshots, we see everything what people did, and we see, oh, this is less common, but it looks much more efficient. And if I want to automate this one, again, I can click on Export to Studio, and the system will export an XML file, a SAML file, directly to the Uipath Studio, where I can take this as a skeleton for my bot and immediately within minutes create my bot to automate process invoice. Now, let's assume we have automated it. So what's the impact? I want to see what really changed. And for that, I go again back to process mining to a different dashboard called automation. And here, again, I add all complexity. We are still in the first quarter of 2019. So, this is where the automation or before the automation journey for our customers started. Just let me switch. So what do we have? We have the same process, but the color coding now represents the automation rate. So we see a legend over here with 0 to 100%. So we can see that already in the first quarter of 2019, process invoice was fully automated by 100%. Same for pay invoice. There was an interface to the payment system, 100% automation. But everything else in between was completely manual. And we have this big bottleneck, and you can see that, for example, every execution of our most common variant number 1, in the first quarter for the 5 most common variants cost us $98. So that's pretty expensive. So in the second quarter, this company started to implement Uipath. So let me show you what happened. And in the second quarter, first of all, you maybe notice that process invoice has a slightly different color because now by the end of the second quarter, it was automated by 24%. So 24% of all invoices were already processed automatically. And we already reduced the throughput time, you remember, from 9 days to 7 days. And look at the cost. So the cost already came down from 98 or 97.84 to around about 81. And in the third quarter, it gets even better. So if I if I go to the second quarter, you can now see that, well, it looks like process invoice is now fully automated by 100%, which is great. For some reason, we have even started to automate the fine check of invoice by 34%. And look at the throughput time. We came down from 9 days to 7 days and now to 34 minutes only. And well, look at the costs. Well, you remember 98, 81, and now $30 only. So great accomplishment. Everybody, mission accomplished. Everybody happy? Not quite. Let me show you why not. I go back to the first quarter. And ladies and gentlemen, for now, please focus only on this part of the process. You see, we have the 1.6 days over here. and we have the 2.2 days over here in the first quarter. In the second quarter, after we started to automate this part, we increased the throughput time by half a day to 2.1 days. Okay, nobody really noticed, but people noticed that this part actually, you know, from, I don't know what it was, 5 days or something like that, or 3 days up to 7 days. So that's the reason why in the third quarter, the company started to automate the fine check of invoice. We were able to bring down the throughput time over here again to 4 days. But because of the higher workload, you know, this was much faster now. There was a higher workflow. The resources over here couldn't keep up with the work. So we have a new bottleneck here with 4 days and 4 days again here. So I have to admit that maybe this dashboard is not perfect. So we are working on some really cool new solutions and new dashboards where this will really jump into your face, and you will see this in a much better way. But you know, I hope you understand where we come from. So first we take the data. We connect directly to the data. That's something I didn't mention so far. We have a complete built-in data transformation layer, but maybe we still have enough time to talk about this. We visualize the process, we discover RPA potential, we use task mining and other functionality to really better understand what process invoice, for example, really means. And after we have implemented Uipath RPA, we can measure the impact on the process, we can measure the increased or decreased throughput time, we can measure the decreased costs, and we can really show the success and the impact of RPA on the process. That's cool, isn't it? But that's not all. Let me show you 2 more things. We have something we call, when I go to my conformance dashboard, you know, we don't want to stop with measuring and discovery. So when I go to my conformance dashboard, we get a dashboard called tags. And tags is a unique functionality we built in our application. Different to, I think, all of the other applications in the market. Uipath process mining, we cover the entire data transformation layer. So maybe let me show you this before we continue here. We consider this really to be one of the big highlights. So, you know, like in any other process mining project, guys, please, one thing I want you to understand and remember. First, if you bike, wear a helmet, okay, forget about it. No, don't forget it, do it. But the second thing is the biggest challenge in process mining really is to get the right data and to get the data right. And there are many different ways how to do that. And the way we do it, you know, we realize that the data we need for process mining is distributed and scattered across different systems. And even if you think about a system like SAP, for example, you know, one of the biggest or the biggest ERP system, we are talking about 170 to 200,000 database tables. So if you want to have the data for one process only, like purchase to pay, you need to read 50 or 60 of the tables. And you need to transform the data. So you really need to put it together. You need to create your event log with your case study, your timestamps, and your activities. And only after you have the data, after you have your event log, you can load it into a process mining application, and the system will visualize the process, the social networks, all kind of KPIs and statistics. But again, you know, one of the highlights of our platform really is that this entire, well, let's call it animal, really is the Uipath process mining platform. So we have connectors where we connect directly to the data source. The whole data transformation is part of our platform. We have an in-memory database we use for that. And then we can visualize the process from all the different perspectives, aspects, and so on. And when we look at our application architecture in a simplified way, you know, we have our connectors. Our connectors consist out of the reader, where we connect natively to all different applications, including SAP. We have our transformers. This is where we build the event logs, and then we loaded the data into an application based on the dashboards we have pre-configured in application 1. You know, it's a template based on our experience from hundreds of projects. And typically we can answer between 100 or let's say 80 and 99.9 of all questions with application 1 only. If not, we can easily extend it and we can customize it. And by the way, this whole thing works on-premise or in the cloud. So there's no need to go to the cloud if you don't want it. We have a lot of customers. You know, we work for some let's say, government offices and in some very sensitive companies around data privacy. So they don't want to see the data in the cloud. So we completely support on-premise, and from a functional perspective, there's no difference at all. So that's the way we are dealing with data. And during this data transformation process, we can apply all kinds of business rules. Like, for example, the very simple rule probably is the SLA violation. You know, this customer actually expected that an invoice will be paid, or let's say will be processed within 30 days. And hey, it's great. Look at this. You know, we are in the third quarter, so we really managed to bring down the number of SLA violations from 503 to 130, and that's fantastic. Well, yeah, it is. It's good, but it's not really perfect, because perfect would be no SLA violations at all. And how can we cope with this problem? Well, the way we do that, again, is we use the full power of our hyper-automation platform. And let's go back to one of the slides. We have something we call the Action Center. It's over here. And what we did with our latest release was really to connect our process mining platform again to the Action Center. And what does it do? Well, let me show you. And you have seen this dashboard, and it's great that we have only 130 SLA violations in the third quarter, but still 130 or 130 too many. So probably in the future, we will define other tags, different rules. Like, for example, we have an invoice that is due the day after tomorrow. And if it's not approved today, then the system will create a tag like possible or potential SLA violation. And based on this tag, we will create an action in our Action Center. So an action actually can be, it's like a workflow. So people will be notified like, hey, Rudy, there's an invoice due in 2 days. Please make sure you approve it today. And if I don't respond because I'm in the hospital, so the system will automatically use our RPA functionality either to, let's say, to reassign this invoice to another person by increasing the priority by sending me a short message or WhatsApp, or we can utilize the full power of our RPA platform, basically, for example, to automatically pay this invoice if it's a trusted supplier we worked with before. Because the last thing we want to do really is to disappoint our partners. So we make sure we pay this invoice in time, and if there's a problem, we can still fix it afterwards. But we really, we use process mining to discover RPA potential. We discover inefficiencies. We discover stuff like risk, of course. We use process mining for monitoring, but we also use process mining in combination with our RPA platform, with the Action Center, to actively monitor and control processes, really to drive them, to make sure that processes are improved constantly over time, and we get better and better. Well, I could easily continue for hours like this because we have plenty of stuff here. Maybe one thing I would really like to show you very, very quickly, because I touched on this, how we connect directly to the data. So what you have seen so far is only the front end of our application that is available for every single user. But I'm logged in as a designer or as an admin. So that's the reason why I have this little circle with the plus. And if I click on it, then actually I will get 2 more or 3 more tabs and 2 more columns. So we have data, we have dashboards, and we have the process graph, because the focus right now is on the process graph. So that's the platform, or let's say the level where we connect to data sources. So if I would like to connect live to a new data source, all I need to do is I right-click and I tell the system that I have a new table I would like to use. Of course, we can upload data we have, any format. It can be an Excel file, it can be in a CSV file. It really doesn't matter. But the better way to do that is a connection string. So when I go for a connection string, I get a new empty table. It's empty. I double click or I right click and I say edit. And I get this little box. It's not really fancy, but when I go to the help, I get a long list of connectors or readers we have out of the box. You know, we can connect directly to an Excel file on a server or in the clouds, wherever. Define the sheet, define the first column, the first row, and read in the data directly without any staging or database in between. We can connect to any file system. Really doesn't matter. We can use ODBC connections to connect to any to any relation database. We have a native connection to SAP. Not only for HANA. You know, HANA is easy. We can connect directly to the ECC system using the capability of some of our partners, where we connect directly to ECC system. We define the table, we define, you know, what kind of data we need, the tables, the fields, everything, and we can read directly from the data. We can join data, no matter of the source, you know, left join, right join, inner join, whatever you need, you join the data. We have union tables, ABAP, Jira, XML, XCS, JSON, email. You know, really whatever you want, you connect directly to the source, no staging area, no database transformation, no scripting, connect to the data, transform the data within the platform, and you can even define data sources as live data. And guys, you know, when we are talking about real-time monitoring, well, first of all, in process mining, there is no real-time. Why not? Because first we need to see the digital footprint, we need to transform the data, and only then we can see it in a dashboard. So if anyone is trying to sell you real-time process monitoring or process mining, send them home, it doesn't work. But with live data, we come very close to that, because every time you open the dashboard or you open the application, we will pull the data or read the data directly from the source, transform it, and show it on the screen. Of course, you should be careful, you know, what you define as live data. Don't do it with the change documents in SAP. There are better ways how we can, you know, really enable monitoring here. But this is a great way really to come as close to real time as possible. Okay, let me delete it again. You know, the other tabs are, this is where we define the dashboards. You know, we don't have the time to build some new dashboards, but I would love to show it to you one day. And because the focus is on the process graph, we go to process graph. And where here we can define what is our case ID, what is the activity, what is the time, the timestamp, and you can really create and look at the process. You can create whatever you want, and you can look at the processes from every perspective you like. And we even have some advanced crazy stuff, well, not crazy, but you know, for example, if you would like to see this process not vertically, but horizontal, you can simply switch, apply the change, and you see the process from left to right. But let's go back to vertical, it fits better into this dashboard. Okay, so what I wanted to show you in this way is that, you know, I really believe that we have the most comprehensive, the most flexible solution out there, not only for process mining, but really embedded in our entire hyper automation platform, where it really makes sense to discover processes before you automate, and you can monitor, you can control the processes, and you really have the full flexibility. And talking about flexibility, the last thing before we switch to questions, you know, let me show you one nice example. Yeah, over here, let's say we take only the cases where we have this checked and approved. That's a sort of a fast track in my process. And what I discover is that for some reason, I see a loop in my fast track, which is quite strange. You know, a loop in the fast track that shouldn't be there. So what's going on? You know, one click, of course, will bring up the 12 cases in variant 25. Oh, okay, variant 25. So what's wrong here? You know, let's focus on variant 25 for a moment to better understand what the problem is. First of all, I see, you know, that we have we received the invoice, then again the bot processed the invoice, and then after 4 hours we come to the first check and approve, which is perfectly fine. But then we have 7 days in average for the second check and approve, which shouldn't be there. And then even if I unroll the loop to better understand what's happening, yeah, 4 days for the first one, but 7 days for the second one. So if I want to better understand where this problem comes from, you know, of course I can go to suppliers and whatever. Well, maybe we should talk to the first supplier. But if I really want to understand the source of my problem, I need to, you know, to shift the view, like, you know, like they did in the hospital with my X-ray. They actually took X-ray from different angles, and we can do the same here. So if I go to dimensions, I can actually look at the same process from different perspectives, from different dimensions. Of course, activity is only one. So again, when we add full complexity, we see the loop. But I can switch, for example, to something like country. And now we see the same process, but now visualized based on the countries. And we see that, oh, it looks like we have a problem between Canada and Netherlands because it looks like the bottleneck is over here. So, let's switch to the team level. So what's going on? Oh, okay. So it looks like the problem is in operations marketing. And we can even go one level deeper, really to the lowest level of users. Well, it's a big picture, so let me move it around a little bit. So now we see, we are in the third quarter. We've fully implemented RPA. So we see the different instances of our scanning bots, the different instances of our processing bots, and we have only a few people involved in the process. But, well, it looks like Kelsey Hoover might be a problem in this process. Let me guess, she's based in the Netherlands and she works for operations marketing. And if you don't believe me, again, let's go to the details, and we can see it's still sorted on throughput time. We take the long-lasting case. Oh my God, look at this. So basically this case was, or this invoice was finished after 18 minutes, but then Kelsey Hoover took over and she delayed the whole thing by 24 days. Well, we still paid in time, but that's not the point. We need to understand, how we can help Kelsey to improve this. Maybe she needs a bot, she needs an attended bot to help her, or basically probably we should tell her that we don't need a second checked and approved. Okay, guys, basically that's it. We have much more to show. I would love to go to every single detail, but we don't have the time today. So if you want to know more, you find me on LinkedIn, please reach out to me and I will be happy to accommodate another demo and really answer your individual questions. So I know that we got some questions here.
Rudy, terrific presentation. We really appreciate it. I'm gonna ask you to click that stop showing screen button so that the audience can see our video feeds on their screens.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, man. You just fell last week and you're here with us this week. I mean, I can only imagine there's, look at that. And I can imagine that there is some post-surgery pain and drugs happening. And I hope that you're feeling okay. It looks on your way to recovery. Thanks for really being here. This was a fascinating deep dive onto process mining, RPA, and all these different capabilities, as you mentioned, related to the broader topic of hyper automation. So because of our audience, and we have only a couple of minutes here, I want to thank Grace Wong, who answers some of the questions directly to the audience, some of the tactical questions that came up during your presentation. I want to ask a bit of more of a strategic question related to the audience that we have. A lot of business transformation, operational excellence leaders working in organizations around the world. What is the best way that you find that a company like Uipath can partner with those internal consultants to the business, if you will, those operational excellence leaders who really understand from how the business works, and what can they do to better partner with you to get to solutions faster, to get to better solutions? What does that look like?
We as Uipath, we have a lot of experience with over 7,000 customers. We have a lot of partners. All our partners are getting trained in process mining, and they are really combining all the different tools we have in our platform. So if you are, let's say, if you are a specialist or a leader in business transformation, in operation excellence, the diagnosis, again, is only part of the job. You need to understand what the problem is, but you need to think about, how the process can be really improved. And again, there are many different ways, but RPA is a great one. So I would really encourage you to reach out to us. Most likely your company, or it may be that your company is already one of our customers, or maybe that you're already using RPA. If you are, then Uipath process mining and Uipath RPA really is the best combination out there, because we have all the connectors out of the box. We have the integration with our bots out of the box. So you will not only see what the challenges are, but after we have implemented RPA, you can immediately see the impact and the success of RPA on your processes. let's talk. That's that's the way to the best way to approach.
Thank you so much for that. Our time is up for the session, but we really appreciate you from Frankfurt, Germany to the world, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, deep insights into this very important subject. Thank you for taking the time to share that with us.
Great pleasure. Thank you for having me. And guys, never forget, wear a helmet if you ride your bicycle.
That's right. That's right. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this segment. At the top of the hour, we're going to be welcoming our next leader who will be discussing mining, modeling, or management. Where should you place your bet? And we have a world-renowned author, performance, and business coach on Mark McGregor, sharing his insights, over 30 years of experience on business process management, working with technology, cross-industry organizations, a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that Mark is going to share with us at the top of the hour. Please, as you close the session, there's always an opportunity for you to provide feedback on this and any other sessions on the GoToWebinar interface. And we look forward to seeing you at the top of the hour with Mark McGregor. Thank you.